Right then, let's talk about England. Yes, people, what is going on? It's your boy Malat Roms in the building, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about how I thought England done in the Euros and the Euros in general. We're currently recording this on Monday, so it is the day after the final, and feelings are still very, very raw. But I think that's just the best way for you lot to see my honest views and opinions on certain things that I'm going to be speaking about today. If you haven't already, don't forget to drop a like and a comment on the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. I believe at this very moment in time we have about 110 subscribers. Let's make sure that number continues growing. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So yeah, like I said, we're going to be talking about how I thought England done in the Euros in general. And we'll go from the very beginning. I'll be so honest. I didn't believe in England from the start. I'll be so honest. I think I looked at, teams like France, Portugal, Germany, Italy, which of course we know went on to win it. I saw those teams and I was like, these guys are way better. I looked at England and I just thought to myself, there's too many new players that haven't necessarily played tournament football before, and it might just be like a little bit of a daunting experience. And I just didn't think that we'd get this far. Like I only really started believing in England was, this is poor from me, but when France got knocked out, so I was like, well, I've only got England left. But yeah, I'll be honest, I did support France in the beginning. Reason being was just, I looked at, how France done in 2018. I then look at those same players, over the past 4 years, 3 years that, they have been playing. And you've got players like Kante, who performs really well, Pogba, Mbappe, Benzema as well. There was some really, there were some quality players in there. Like you back them to go and do just as well as they done in the World Cup. Maybe I'm not saying that, of course I backed them to win it, but I definitely thought, that they'd at least get to the final, even though they were in that group of death, which is a whole other talking point. But yeah, so it was a real shock when they got knocked out. Like I just didn't see it coming. But yeah, and that goes the same, with Portugal and Germany. Of course, England played Germany. By the time we were playing against Germany, of course, I'm back in England. I'm not back in Germany to win it. It was only France and England that I was really supporting at that time. But yeah, even going into that group of death, I mean, it was Hungary, Portugal, Germany, and France. Like, the one thing I didn't expect was for all three of those big teams to not even get into like the semis. I didn't see that coming at all. Of course, we knew that they would, at least two of them would go to the quarters. That's what happens when you top every group, as you guys know already. But I just thought that both, at least France and Portugal, would get through to the semis, and I wouldn't have even been surprised, earlier on in the tournament if it was them two in the final again. Like, once again, they had some good players, and of course we're not talking about too much of them right now. I'm more focused on England, but yeah, it was just that shock to me. But yeah, I guess that kind of brings me to England. You look at England and it's like, look how many new players we had join us in the tournament. Who wasn't there in the 2018 World Cup? We had, like, I don't think Saka wasn't there, so he's new. Calvin Phillips, new. Declan Rice, new. Jadon Sancho, also new. Phil Foden, also new. Ben Chilwell, he was also new. Tyrone Mings, he was also new. Who else was in there? Am I missing that? I'm not. Ben White, I think, was another one. Also, incredibly new. Connor Cody, also new. And I know, of course, not all of these players had minutes, but there was just a lot of players in there that were inexperienced. And I know that people wanted to see like the Calvin Phillips and Mason Mount. He's another one. We had all of these players that didn't play, tournament football at an international level before, and it's kind of worrying. You kind of think to yourself, these guys, if you haven't played there before, I'm not expecting you to do well. I'm just expecting you to enjoy the experience, to be honest. Like, there's other guys out there like the France, Portugals, and Germanys that have, they've been doing this. And so yeah, that definitely caused like a lot of doubt in the beginning, and I just didn't think that they would manage each game like as well as they did. Like, they've done so well to be unbeaten in, I believe it was 6 games. you know, to not concede at all and to also not lose. Of course you wouldn't lose because you didn't. You know what I mean. But yeah, I think honestly they managed it very well, and I have to give credits to two players especially. And we're gonna talk about, you know, some other players as well later on. But Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice, two brilliant centre midfielders this tournament. I think they done absolutely amazing. They controlled games really well. Their defending was brilliant. Their ability to win the ball back in transitions, absolutely amazing. Like you can't fault them at all. This whole tournament, I think every single game they've played, or at least every single game that I've watched. The only game that I missed was the first two, and the second one against Scotland. I completely missed that game. But every game after that, I was there. I was watching it. But yeah, they done exceptionally well. But we'll move on to some of those other players soon, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Another thing that I wanted to mention is also England's style of play. I wouldn't just say Southgate, because I've seen England play a very similar way, across previous tournaments before. We always play this boring football, and it's football that I just don't enjoy, especially when it comes to England. But I don't think I've watched this many England games for a while, because it's just like, I know England they're not an enjoyable team to watch usually. Like, you know, it's very sideways, it's very conservative. We just pass. We don't really try and attack. We don't really try and, you know, take risks for goals. We try and concede as little as possible. And, you know, it's not easy on the eye to watch. And that was for me, that was just another thing. You look at the teams like Germany, once again, Germany, Portugal and France, they all have these exciting elements of football that people would love to see, and just England just didn't have that. But I mean, once again, like, it worked so well in our favor. Like, to be able to be sideways and to be able to control possession, but then in those quick moments where you have like a Raheem Sterling or a Saka or even Kane later on in the tournament as well, to just pop up in those moments and just go and get goals, which was absolutely brilliant. And as the tournament went on, I definitely, of course, it was still a style of play that I didn't like, but I definitely believed in it a little bit more. It's just like, hold on, do you know what? This conservative football is working for us, because we're protecting our defensive midfielders, we're protecting our back four, but at the same time, we're actually still getting goals, which is what, the whole nation wanted to see that. So yeah, I'm glad that it took us to a final. I'm glad that we done well in that respect also. I also want to talk about Southgate's selection as well. I think the back four was absolutely fine. I know there was arguments in the beginning in regards to Ben Chilwell, who starts at left back, whether it be Ben Chilwell or Luke Shaw. But I think, Luke Shaw, he answered that question pretty quickly. I think he's done brilliant every single game. I think every single game that he's played, he's done really, really well. That's nothing against Ben Chilwell. Ben Chilwell has also had a brilliant season, winning the Champions League as well. Of course, Luke Shaw had a chance to win trophies at the end of the season. He didn't, but I think in terms of his form, he was absolutely brilliant. That was my alarm if you heard that. But yeah, I think he was absolutely brilliant. Like, I couldn't fault him for anything. I don't feel like he's done anything wrong. I think he was right to go at left back. The two centre backs in, Stones and Maguire, brilliant. Pickford in goal. Pickford for me is someone that I don't know why, he always looks uncomfortable. For me, I don't know if that's just because of his personality, if that's just how he is, but it doesn't suit me. I think Kyle Walker, his recovery runs, he's someone that's brilliant. May not be, I don't think he's the best on the ball out of that back four, but he done his job, and he done his thing this tournament. Another thing that interested me, I didn't think Calvin Phillips and Rice would get the amount of game time that they did. I did definitely expect to see Henderson a little bit more. He's one of the captains, he's one of the leaders within that England setup, and to see him on the bench for as long as we did, and there's reasons for that. I just didn't think that both Calvin and Declan would have the game time that they have. And once again, like, they've played brilliantly, like really professional performances. They were incredibly, like, what's the word I'm looking for, mature as well. You can't, there's not really much to say in regards to them doing wrong, especially as well as two defensive midfielders. We only conceded 2 goals this whole tournament, 2 or 3. Is it 2 or 3? We conceded 1 against Denmark and 1 against Italy. If I've missed one, put it in the comments or something. But yeah, I believe we've only conceded 2 goals. Like, you can't say that the back 4 and the middle 2 were terrible. I know we went with the back 5 at times as well, which has also worked. It's not really my preference. I do prefer a back 4, but yeah, they were brilliant. But now we get to the juicy bit. You know, we have our attacking players. I would have loved to see Foden, Sancho, and there was one more in there. Who was the other one? Grealish. I would have loved to see them a lot more. I know, of course, when we look at Mason Mount, I know that he definitely has I think he has more legs, especially defensively, over like those midfielders, over like the other midfielders in Foden and Grealish. I definitely agree with that. And I know that maybe in our defensive phases, he's gonna do a lot more tracking. He's gonna follow plays a little bit more. He's probably gonna have a little bit more hunger to win the ball back. But I think going forward, I think we could have created so much more chances, and we had with Foden and Grealish, you have a chance to play that attacking football and that exciting football as well. They're both got brilliant eyes for passes, especially Grealish. Grealish is someone that he can make something out of nothing, and I would have just loved to see him more. Sancho as well, you know, he could have killed that right side every game that he would have played. I remember, like, you know, you watched I believe it was the Ukraine performance, and it's just like he could have been doing that all tournament. That's who Sancho is. That's what he does. But then once again, in my head, I'm just thinking that I know that maybe Sancho and Grealish's style of play doesn't necessarily suit, you know, Southgate's tactics in terms of being a little bit more conservative, because we know when they get on the ball, they're trying to get as forward as possible. When you have like the Sackers and the Mount, I think they're a little bit more conservative too, and that play style also matches the philosophy. And I think especially as well, once again, I'm gonna start talking about Saka and Sterling soon. But yeah, Saka was another one. He was brilliant. For me, I'll be honest, Saka wasn't someone that I necessarily rated when he was at Arsenal. I'm just gonna be honest to say that I didn't rate him at all. I think Arsenal had a terrible season, and I think Saka, you know, he's a bright young player. He's a bright talent, and he's got a lot, you know, ahead of him. But I just didn't rate him yet. But I think in this tournament, he's definitely earned my respect. I think he's been so mature, you know, all the way through this tournament. But once again, we'll get to that. Don't worry, guys. We'll get to that. Stick around. We'll get there. We'll get there. Of course, Sterling on the left. I think Sterling. See, for me with Sterling, I see why he does so well, and you see why he has, you know, so much passion every single game. Like, imagine growing up behind that stadium, like you're in your back garden, and the stadium is right there. He talks about it in some of his interviews and stuff, and it's like, imagine that most of the games that you're going to be playing are at Wembley, the finals in Wembley. You know, he grew up in Wembley. That's why, you know, Brent is the borough that Wembley's in. That's why, you know, they call him the boy from Brent. Like, how would you not want to do well? Like, you can see that, especially like culturally, you could just see where the drive was. And I think for me, he was the star player of the tournament. He was phenomenal. He was brilliant. Like, I know that I guess he didn't have maybe his best season at City. I wouldn't say it was a rubbish season. I just think he didn't have his best season. But I think when he came to putting on that England jersey, I think he stepped up so well. And it's like in times where we would have looked more to Kane. With Kane as well has had to be, I think, you know, we know he had a slow start, but I think when he put on his kill switch, he was brilliant as well. But I know that we were probably looking more to Kane naturally to Sterling. I don't think anyone expected to do, or don't think anyone expected to see Sterling do rather what he done. And he was brilliant. He was absolutely amazing. And once again, with Kane up top, I don't see why you don't not put him there. I know we had, you know, Calvert-Lewin and Rashford and stuff, but I just don't think they can't do what Kane does. You know, I know that there was arguments before in regards to bringing in Patrick Bamford, but I just think, yeah, it's Harry Kane. You know, he is gonna get goals. Of course, even me. In those first couple of games, I'm looking at him like, why aren't you scoring goals? Like, why isn't anything, you know, coming from you in the back of the net? And I definitely did have my thoughts about that. But once again, I believe it was what game was it? Was it the Germany game? I think it was the Germany game. I think he scored from a header. And I think ever since then, like, he's just been really, really switched on. And then you kind of go, there's the Kane, you know, that we all know that can be an absolute killer in front of goals. So yeah, you know, big respects to him also. Before I even move on, there's actually another point that I wanted to make. I know that there were a few England fans that probably would have loved to see Rashford as well, whether that be up top and on that left side. I'm personally quite glad that Rashford barely played and just trained. And I'll explain why, right now. I don't know if you lot remember the interview that he gave after losing to Villarreal in the Europa League final earlier on. And, he talks, I believe the interviewer asks him about, the injuries that he's had. And he went on to say that, the feeling that he had of losing, he didn't necessarily feel the injury. I know he also gave talking points about how there were a lot of players that were carrying injuries throughout the season and they just had to push through each game, which once again, it's like, I think there's a right and wrong within that. I think it's wrong because you do want to rest your body and you do want to be able to have maximum output every game. And of course you want to take the rest, but of course it's good as well because you're showing, I guess, a sense of, strong passion and love, for the badge that you play for. And I think Rashford as well, I think he's had a very good season with Manchester United too. But I'm actually very glad that I just didn't see him a lot because in my head I'm thinking to myself, if you are carrying those injuries, the last thing I would want him to do is to go play for England, get injured, and then we have a really slow start. When he comes back to United, like for example, Greenwood taking the decision to step out, I completely respect that. I wouldn't have minded if Rashford done the same thing as well, but he didn't, and he did get his minutes, and he did try to do his thing when he was on the pitch. But I'm just glad that he just didn't play as much because I hope that during this time his body has actually had time to recover because he's now going to go back into a 9-month long season with United where we are going to be pushing a lot harder. And of course he was, even in that interview as well, he did say he is looking to go even stronger for next season. And I think to do that with an injury, it's going to be quite tough, and the last thing we want to see is Rashford out on the sidelines for too long, because if we're talking about once again last season's form, he is going to be quite key for Manchester United this season, and I want him to be fit, as fit as possible for every game. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Marcus Rashford. But we'll move on. Right, we're slowly getting through this. I'm now going to talk about the final. Once again, that was yesterday of recording this video. I didn't want us to go 5 at the back. I think we would have been okay with going with 4. But look, we decided to go with 5, and I think we protected ourselves quite well. Luke Shaw scoring in the 2nd minute, that was something I didn't expect. I was with a couple of my mates when we were watching the game, and I remember I saw Trippier have the ball, just outside the box, and I was actually screaming, "Don't cross it," because in my head I thought he was going for Harry Kane, and Harry Kane had about 2-3 players around him, and I'm thinking, I know Harry Kane's a wicked ball winner, but you've got 2-3 players around you. It's hard to win a header in those situations. And then you see the ball go right over to Kane, and you see that Luke Shaw just running onto this ball, and I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way Luke Shaw does this, and he puts it away, and it's a brilliant finish. He's not going for the top bins like a lot of us were probably hoping for, like to just control the ball and just hit it at that bottom corner. It was such a polished finish, honestly. Brilliant, absolute scenes. And I think for the rest of the game I definitely was a little bit nervous. I would have loved for us to score one more. I don't think we created too many clear chances like that where we could get in front of goal and have more shots. I think we had a few half chances that of course we all would have loved to see go in the back of the net, but I think with the one clear chance that we did have, I'm super proud of the boys, that they put it away. Even going, in terms of like the psychology of things, once again, like there's a lot of boys in there that haven't played a final before, and 2 haven't been at that stage in an England shirt, where it's knockout football. I know we haven't necessarily done in knockout football for a number of years, but once again, like it's just a different environment to be in. And I always did think that Italy would do a little bit better at that. I think they had a lot more experienced players, and I think for me, my biggest fear was the longer the game goes on, the more Italy are gonna begin to haunt us more and more. Which they did. My prediction was 2-1 England, but I thought that would have been done in the 90 minutes. I was worried that if it did go to extra time and penalties, I was a little bit unsure about England's chances of winning. Of course, once again, at this point, I'm an England fan and I do want to believe in my team, and I did, but I just knew in the back of my mind that Italy, when it comes to, like the dark arts of football and the game management in late stages in football, I think they definitely are the better team on paper and in real life. When you look at how they play, and they done that brilliantly. I think once again as well, like some brilliant performances in there. I think Saka, he had a really good game. Of course, and I'm pretty sure, you know, Italy were going to be aware of Sterling, and you know, they kind of done their thing to stop him. But I think he had a good game. Kane, he played brilliantly. Pickford, once again, Pickford, someone that he makes me feel nervous. That's not me saying that he's a terrible keeper. I think he's brilliant. But I'd love to see like England play at the back, for example. But it's like, why is it that every time Pickford gets the ball, he's trying to lump it long to a 5'9" or 5'7" Raheem Sterling or Harry Kane that's been contested by 2 centre backs? Like, what are we expecting here? Are we really thinking that he's going to be winning these headers? Why not play at the back? Why not have our players drop deeper and offer more numbers in possession? I would have loved to see us control that game a little bit more, because you look at Italy and you look at them from their goal kicks, we'd have a player like on maybe like on one of their centre backs, but they've also got 2 other options that Donnarumma can pass to, you know, and like there were several times where they were just able to play out the back, you know, so well. And I would have just loved to see England do that as well, especially with a lot of these boys play for teams that play out the back. So being able to, when it comes to, you know, an opposing team pressing them, that's something that they've seen week in, week out. Why couldn't we do that for England as well? I would have just loved to see Southgate, you know, adapt his tactics there. I think as well tactically with Southgate, I'm glad that he still opted to try and, you know, use the wide areas where he could have not try and, you know, bomb things down the middle. I don't think that would have been the approach. Getting the early goal as well definitely helped with some of our counter attacks, but once again, we only made the most of one of those. But I think in the way that we were counter attacking, I think it was a brilliant idea to do, especially as well letting Italy have a little bit more of the ball and, you know, making Chiellini and Bonucci do those constant sprints. I think it did work, but it just didn't get us, you know, the goals. And, you know, as the game went on, you know, Italy got back in the game. Even with the goal that Italy scored, I mean, look, I think initially it's a brilliant save from Jordan Pickford. Absolutely amazing. But of course, Bonucci's seen the path for the ball. Both our centre-backs are out. Like they've been drawn out to other players. Harry Kane is the only one who's on the line that would have any chance of trying to stop that ball. And Harry Kane's not a defender. You know, he's there to get his body in the way of anything that's near to him, and he done what he could. But of course, you know, Bonucci's seen that I think Harry Kane was, if we're looking at this camera, Harry Kane was like somewhere here, and like the rest of the goal, the space between the goal was kind of like there. You know, Bonucci's not missing that from 4 or 5 yards out. That's going in every time. But even after that, I was still confident that England, they could do something, even in extra time. Of course, once again, I was nervous that, you know, England might, you know, we might just not win. But yeah, I did have my hope. But that's where that brings me now to the penalty shootout. So in regards to the penalties, I mean, look, you could look at previous England tournaments and penalty shootouts. You look at when Southgate went and took a penalty for England. I believe it was against Germany? I can't remember what team it was against, but you look at the penalties he's missed, or the penalty rather, and you know that the history behind sort of England and penalties, we know that we're not great. So imagine taking that whole storyline and now going into a penalty shootout against Italy, who had a brilliant shootout against Spain, bar a few misses. I was nervous. And in the back of my mind, once again, I want England to win. I want us to score every goals. But in my head, I know that Italy they're the better team. They're the better team when it's going to come to penalties. They're going to be a lot more composed. They're going to be a lot more accurate. There's going to be a lot more confidence behind the penalties that they've taken. And they done extremely well. You know, it was disappointing to see, you know, our players miss, but at the same time, you know, England have never been known for that. I wish that, I wish, I don't know if they were working on penalties, you know, in training, but yeah, you know, I didn't expect, you know, a miracle from those guys. I think I expected, you know, maybe Rashford to score. I've seen Rashford step up in some, you know, big moments, you know, for Manchester United in the penalty shootout against Villarreal. You look at his penalty against PSG during that comeback. We all remember that moment. I think, you know, I did expect him to score, but he didn't, and that's the nature of penalties. You know, it happens. Sometimes penalties, you need a bit of luck, and sometimes the luck it doesn't go your way, and that was quite annoying. Maguire's penalty though, top bins, broke the camera, absolutely brilliant. Pickford as well, being able to read like a Jorginho penalty. You know, we know, like when I saw Jorginho step up, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, the game's done. the game is done. I did have a feeling that he would go bottom left, but like for Pickford to be so brave and to commit to that side and save it, he was absolutely amazing. Once again, I know he makes me feel uncomfortable, but he stepped up in a lot of moments, and he's had 5 clean sheets. So you have to respect Pickford and what he's done. And then of course, we look at Sancho who missed, and Saka as well, and I know everyone's got their thoughts about that. And there was a reason why I wanted to record this video a day afterwards and not necessarily on the same night. There was a tweet that came up from Jack Grealish. Well, actually, before we even go into that, I know that Saka's taken a penalty and he's missed, and I'm so glad to see all the positivity on Twitter, Instagram, on YouTube comments as well. Like people are backing him. We're not necessarily going to talk about the other stuff that was said just yet. We'll get into that. But yeah, like the message comes from me as well. Like Saka's done brilliantly this tournament, and for a 19-year-old to step up for the most crucial penalty, you have to respect it. I know he's missed, but that's part of the game. It happens. He's got a long career ahead of him if he takes care of himself and he continues working hard. I'm pretty sure this won't be, the last penalty he ever takes, and it probably won't be the last crucial one he takes either. And we just hope that in an England top, if he does have that moment again, he does go and put it, in the back of the net. But I know there was all this talk about, why hasn't Grealish or Sterling or who was the other player? There was another player that they were getting onto for not taking a penalty. But I know, there was Grealish and Sterling that they were quite unhappy with. There was actually a tweet that came up from Jack Grealish, and he actually said, I did want to take a penalty. I'll put it, here somewhere. JB, do your thing. But yeah, I know that, I didn't know that he wanted to take a penalty. We were just all confused as to why, but he said that he did. Why he didn't, I don't know. I guess Southgate, had the pulling power on things, and he wanted it to be Saka. Another thing I don't agree with, and a lot of people, that are watching this video, a lot of people on Twitter as well have said it already. Why bring on 2 players that hadn't played, they didn't even play 10 minutes of football in that game, and you put both of them on to take a penalty? Like, what are you thinking? I really wanted to understand, what's Southgate thinking there? Like, their legs aren't warm. They're not, particularly too sharp. Then they're not, really in the game like that yet. I know that there's other tired players on the pitch, but they're in that nature of the game. They're accustomed to what's going on around them. They probably would have taken a penalty and scored. But you've got 2 players that aren't necessarily fresh like that in the game. Well, of course they're fresh because they're fit and they'll give us a lot of runs, but they haven't warmed into the game. And I think for 2 players taking penalties, I didn't like that too much. But once again, Jack Grealish even said in his tweet, Southgate has made a lot of controversial decisions for all us England fans, and a lot of them have been right. So we can't hate Southgate for that. And another decision that he's made, for maybe other players to take the penalty, he's got wrong. But let's not crucify him for that. He's been a brilliant manager this tournament. But yeah, I just would have loved to see, maybe a Henderson, even a Calvin Phillips, a Luke Shaw. I would have just loved to see them take penalties instead. Right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is racism. As a black man myself, this isn't the part of the video where I'm going to be calling out the race card and talking about all of that stuff, but I did see the comments about Saka. There was a lot of comments as well, it being the 3 black players that had crucial moments and crucial penalties that they all missed, and there were a lot of comments on that. I'm not going to put those comments on screen, nor am I going to repeat them, but for me, I think that's absolutely disgusting, because these are the same people that were cheering on these same guys when they had good games, when they contributed in big moments, especially, maybe not so much Rashford, but especially more so Sancho and Saka in the games that they played against Ukraine, for example. I know no one was calling Sancho the N-word then, when he's dribbling past 2 or 3 players, but when he misses a crucial pen, all of a sudden he is that. And we're here and we're seeing monkey emojis, and we're hearing, people say go back to your country. I didn't particularly like that. There was another crazy thing that I saw as well. Someone said that Southgate was out for black players and he done it on purpose. That's absolutely outrageous. How could you say that? I think more than anyone, Southgate understands what it's like for black players. And I think for me, I see a Southgate that's gone, do you know what? I'm actually going to give these guys a platform to go and make a name for themselves. To go and actually score penalties in those crucial moments. Because if it does, you know, once again, the comments that we're seeing now on the timeline, you know, it would have been completely different. Everyone would have been loving all black players that you know, that have played for us, that got selected for England. But, you know, of course, you know, they all missed. And once again, like I said, you know, earlier on in this video, it happens. But the fact that we're also drawing out Southgate as well for that particular reason, I don't respect it. I don't respect it. Definitely as well, like after last night, there were a lot of tweets from me, from a lot of other people as well, black people. You know, we kind of just said to each other, you know, just go home. I did hear a few incidents of people getting attacked, stabbings as well, on the way home. There was another story about someone getting thrown into, I don't know if it was the River Thames, it's just something I've heard, but someone getting thrown into water. I don't know if that, I can't confirm if that was a black player or not, but I just knew that there was going to be a little bit of violence. I definitely wasn't too comfortable with that. I know that was something that was a bit of a joke, you know, leading up to the final, but the fact that we're actually there and then we're seeing stuff happen, yeah, I wasn't too fond of that. There was another tweet that I put out as well. I won't put it on this video. If you want to find it, you know, go check out my Twitter. If you keep scrolling, you'll know exactly which one it is. You know, people are now having a point system for doing things to black people. You know, it's a certain amount of points if you spit at a black person, or a certain amount of points if you break into a black person's house, and things like that. Like, once again, why are we doing this? You know, these are the same guys that black lives would have mattered if those penalties went in, but all of a sudden they don't, because yes, they've cost us the game. But the fact that black people, and I say we because I'm a black man too, you know, the fact that we are treated like that, I just don't think it isn't on. And I don't think this will be, you know, the last time we experience racism. I think we're going to keep going through it. I think, you know, when I step outside my house today, who knows? I might get a dirty look. Who knows? It happens. But I just think, yeah, I just hope that, you know, black players and black people that were supporting England, I just hope they don't feel too vulnerable to what may happen over the next few days. I just hope that they stay protected, and I hope that they just continue to look after themselves and they continue to just live their day as they usually would. But you know, black lives do definitely still matter. That's not me saying that I agree with the campaigns and the things that have been happening over the tournaments and over the Premier League season as well, but let's not treat us like, no, I say please don't treat us like we're toys or some sort of object or some sort of scapegoat, because these same black players that you're getting onto are the same black players that probably saved you. They definitely saved England. The main one, again, being Raheem Sterling. You know, if we were just relying on Kane, let's be honest, would we get as far? Would we have got as far into the tournament, especially with the slow start that he had? Because if Sterling's not there and those games are 0-0, it's a different outlook. It's a very different outlook. Of course, so that's not me saying that Kane didn't do anything this game. In this tournament, sorry, he did. But Sterling was the one who every single game, he was on it. Every single game, from playing against, I think it was Croatia the first game, all the way through to playing against Italy in the final. He stepped up. And everyone's loving him for it. But don't be calling him certain phrases now because he hasn't, you know, won it, or he hasn't stepped up for a crucial moment. Don't treat any player or person like that. You know, no one deserves it. But I won't end it on that dark tone. I'm definitely gonna end it on a lighter one. And I have to say, you know, to England, you know, absolutely amazing from them to get to the semi-finals of the World Cup, and then to progress further into a final after 55 years, to then score the quickest goal in, I think it's European, you know, European tournament history on when it comes to country football. Absolutely brilliant. The amount of young players, new young players that we have brought through, players that haven't played in England tournaments before that have done so well. You really have to commend them for that. You know, predictions for 2022 World Cup, you know, we'll see how England bounce back from this. You know, I hope that they do well, and if they get to another final, hey, I hope they win it. But, you know, for what they've done this tournament, of course, I know that we're all gutted and upset that they haven't gone as far. as we would have wanted them to. I am just super glad that they have done this well, and I just hope that now they use the time to recover and they focus on the season, and every single one of those players in that England top uses that as fuel to just fight for their clubs, especially Man United. But we are going to end it there. You know what? It was something a little bit different, and I thought it would have been, you know, a nice way to sort of share my thoughts with you guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Feel free to drop your comments in the comment sections. Let's chat. I also go live on Twitch on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the moment. So if you want to have a chat there this week, or next week, or the week after that, and you want to talk about other stuff, you know, I'm always down. Stay tuned on this channel as well for other videos that we will be putting out. Pro Clubs videos are coming soon. We've also got some other content that's coming, but just hold tight. I may do a FIFA 22 video as well, and looking at what that looks like and my thoughts on it. But we're going to end it for today. Once again, thank you so much for sticking around if you have for this long. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the video. Once again, don't forget to leave your comments. But for now, I've been your boy, ManLikeRoms. Have a good day. Have a good week. Have a good month. Have a good rest of the year. Stay underrated. Peace.